I'm a 45-year-old man, been married for 15 years to my wife, Jenny. She's 44, and we have two kids, Sam and Lucy. I don't know how to really start this, but here we go. Jenny and I were childhood friends. We weren't particularly close because we didn't notice each other much until high school. Our mutual friends started dating, and we began seeing each other a lot more. At first, we were just friends, but then, after I grew a pair of nuts, I asked her out, and she said yes. To confess, I had a crush on her before our friends started dating, but I kept it to myself. We started dating during our last 2 years of high school and planned to go to the same college. But after figuring out that her school didn't offer the same program I was interested in, I had to head to another one. I should have seen a problem when the school I picked had her program, but she told me it wasn't a place she saw herself. We tried the long-distance thing for a while, but it didn't really work, so we called it quits while we were in college. After a few years and graduating from school, we surprisingly bumped into each other during a visit back home. Conversation sparked up a passion of interest, so we stayed in contact, talking almost every day, reigniting our passion for each other. It wasn't long before she moved into my apartment. It did seem pretty fast now that I think about it, but I can't lie, it just felt right at the moment. My career was going well, and she was just about to graduate with her degree, so everything seemed perfect. During this time, she had a male friend. Let's call him Dave. Dave was extremely attractive, this guy is a player, and I kinda didn't trust him. Okay, I'll be honest, I didn't trust him at all, and I hated that Jenny was his friend. We had many conversations about this, and she promised me, swore to God himself, that she had no romantic feelings for Dave, and they were strictly friends. She said if I really trusted her, I wouldn't worry. Believing that I should trust her, I convinced myself she wouldn't do anything to sabotage what we were building. Fast forward a bit, and at this point, my work and home life were competing with each other. The kids needed me for this and that, but I had work obligations piling up. I'm not gonna lie, I made mistakes, maybe leaned too hard on Jenny, or didn't tell her how much I appreciated her, but I always thought it was implied. One day, I came home from work, and as I walked in, I heard her laughing and giggling. Heading into the kitchen, I noticed she was cleaning the dishes, and Dave was sitting at the island talking to her. As I walked into the room, a slight quietness entered with me, almost like I was a guest in my own house. They both quickly greeted me, not suspiciously, but enough to fill the silence. Now, Dave and I weren't friends, but we had a conversation about my uncomfortable feelings regarding him and Jenny. It wasn't long or combative. It was short and simple. Looking back now, he probably got a good laugh at my expense. After a few minutes, Dave left, and it was just me and Jenny. At this point, I don't know if she was already with him or if she was just mad at me for not helping out a lot. But whenever I tried to get close to her or show some intimate touch, she rejected me with, "I'm tired, had the kids all day," or she would start a random argument about something so small. This had been happening for the last 6 months, until I just got to the point and asked, "Is there someone else?" That's when all hell broke loose. She called me every name in the book, and even brought up some insecurities I had. If that wasn't a sign, she didn't talk to me for about a week after that. At this point, I knew something was going on, so I knew I had to figure it out. I booked her a spa day on my day off and made sure she was completely pampered. While she left the house, a buddy of mine who's an electrician helped me place small cameras around the house. Before you say anything, I know it was extreme, and you're right. I would have left if it were a different situation, but I was praying I was wrong. I hoped I'd record for a month or 3, see nothing, and then know I was a dumbass with a great woman who loved me. She came home smiling and even gave me some attention. I thought maybe the spa day was all she needed, some time to wind down. It felt like the old days while it lasted. After 2 months of recording, I didn't find anything, and I was so happy, feeling like a dumbass for putting cameras in my house. I stopped watching the cameras for a while. They just became out of sight, out of mind. One day I got a notification on my phone telling me something in the house was ajar or something like that. I thought I'd check the cameras to see if one of the kids had broken something. Flicking through the cameras, I stopped at the front door, noticing a black pair of shoes next to another pair that didn't look like any of mine. Something in me said to go to the bedroom camera. I looked at that camera. There was no one there, and the bed was still made. For some odd reason, I kept flicking through the cameras and then caught Jenny coming out of the laundry room with Dave behind her. She fixed her clothing, and he was buckling his pants. My heart shattered. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Everything inside of me wanted to go home and confront them, but I thought about my kids and how losing both parents wouldn't benefit them. I shut everything in my office and, ashamed to say, I cried. I can't say how long, but long enough for my eyes to feel swollen. After that, I knew what I had to do. As I headed home, I tried to compose myself for the argument I knew was coming. I called a family friend and asked if the kids could stay over for a while so that Jenny and I could talk. They agreed, and as I arrived home, Jenny was cooking. I can still smell that food like a prisoner's last meal. I sat down in silence, pulled out my phone, and showed her the video of her and Dave coming out of the laundry room. All I said was, "Why?" At first, she tried to lie, even with video evidence. But after a while, she finally broke and told me the truth. She and Dave had been sleeping together for the last 3 years, and she could be pregnant with his child. She said she was sorry I had to find out like this. But since it was all out, she wanted a divorce. It hit me hard because I came from a broken family and never wanted my kids to feel the struggle of a separated family. After hearing that, I got up and went upstairs feeling defeated. I'd worked my ass off and did all I could to place this family on a pedestal, and it felt like someone just kicked it from under me. I wanted to harm myself so bad when I figured that out. But God works in mysterious ways. My daughter called me and told me that she loved me, not in those exact words, but it was what I needed to get better. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept tossing and turning, thinking about everything that had happened. The betrayal, the lies, the future of my kids. I felt like my world was falling apart. The next morning, I decided to take action. I called a lawyer and started the process of filing for divorce. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but it was the right thing to do for me and my kids. I couldn't stay in a marriage where there was no trust, no respect, and no love. In the following weeks, I tried to maintain some sense of normalcy for Sam and Lucy. I didn't want them to feel the impact of our broken marriage. I took them to school, helped them with their homework, and spent quality time with them. They were my anchor, keeping me grounded amidst the chaos. Jenny moved out to stay with a friend, and we agreed on a visitation schedule for the kids. It was painful seeing her leave, knowing our life together was over, but I had to stay strong for Sam and Lucy. One day, as I was sorting through some old photos, I found a picture of Jenny and me from our high school days. We looked so happy, so full of life and dreams. It was hard to reconcile that image with the reality of our situation. I realized that somewhere along the way, we had lost ourselves in each other. The love we once had was now buried under layers of resentment and hurt. As the divorce proceedings went on, I focused on rebuilding my life. I reconnected with old friends, started going to the gym, and even took up a new hobby, woodworking. It was therapeutic, working with my hands, creating something new out of raw materials. It gave me a sense of purpose and accomplishment. Jenny and I had to attend a few mediation sessions to work out the details of our divorce. They were tense and emotionally draining, but we managed to come to an agreement on custody and finances. It was hard seeing her across the table, knowing she was now just someone I used to know. I couldn't help but wonder if things could have been different, if we had communicated better, if I had shown her more appreciation, if she had been honest with me. After the divorce was finalized, I moved into a smaller house. It was a fresh start, a new beginning. The kids adjusted well, and I made sure they had a stable and loving environment. I knew I couldn't shield them from the pain of our separation, but I could show them that life goes on and that we could still be a family, even if it looked different now. As time passed, I found myself healing. The pain of betrayal slowly faded, replaced by a sense of acceptance and peace. I realized that life is unpredictable, and sometimes things don't work out the way we planned. But that doesn't mean we stop living or loving. We pick up the pieces, learn from our mistakes, and move forward. One evening, I was sitting on the porch watching the sunset when Sam and Lucy came running out to join me. They sat on either side of me, and we watched the sky turn shades of pink and orange. In that moment, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. Despite everything, I still had my kids, and they were my greatest joy. I looked at them and said, "No matter what happens, we'll always have each other." They smiled and hugged me, and I knew that we were going to be okay. We had been through a lot, but we had come out stronger on the other side. Life went on, and so did we. I found a new job that allowed me to spend more time with the kids. We made new memories, went on trips, and celebrated milestones together. Jenny and I remained cordial for the sake of the kids, but our relationship was now purely co-parenting. One day, I ran into an old friend at the grocery store. We started talking, and it felt good to reconnect. We exchanged numbers, and soon after, we went out for coffee. Her name was Emily, and she had been through a divorce as well. We bonded over our shared experiences, and a friendship blossomed. Over time, that friendship turned into something more. Emily was kind, understanding, and supportive. She knew the pain of betrayal and the challenges of starting over. With her, I felt a sense of hope and happiness that I hadn't felt in a long time. Emily and I took things slow. We didn't want to rush into anything, especially since we both had kids. But as the months went by, our relationship grew stronger. She became a part of my life, and eventually, a part of Sam and Lucy's lives too. They adored her, and she treated them with love and care. Looking back, I realized that life had a way of surprising us. What I thought was the end of my world was actually the beginning of a new chapter. I learned that it's okay to feel pain, to grieve, and to let go, but it's also important to heal, to forgive, and to open our hearts to new possibilities. Emily and I got married in a small, intimate ceremony with just our closest friends and family. Sam and Lucy were there, smiling and happy. It was a beautiful day, filled with love and hope for the future. I knew that I had found a partner who truly understood me, who loved me for who I was, and who would stand by me through thick and thin. As we stood there exchanging vows, I felt a sense of peace and contentment. I knew that the road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but I was ready to face it with Emily by my side. We had both been through so much, and we had come out stronger. Together, we built a new life, a new family, and a new future. Years passed, and life continued to throw its challenges our way. But with each obstacle, we grew closer and more resilient. Sam and Lucy thrived, and Emily's kids became an integral part of our family. We created a home filled with love, laughter, and support. One evening, as I sat on the porch with Emily, watching the sunset, I thought about how far I had come. From the depths of despair to the heights of happiness, life had taken me on a journey I never could have imagined. I looked at Emily, and she smiled at me, her eyes filled with love and understanding. "Thank you for believing in us," I said, holding her hand. She squeezed my hand and replied, "Thank you for giving us a chance." In that moment, I realized that life is full of second chances. It's about learning from our past, embracing the present, and looking forward to the future. No matter what happens, we have the power to create our own happiness, to build a life filled with love and meaning. And so, as the sun set on another day, I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the journey I had taken. It had been a long and winding road, but it had led me to where I was meant to be. With Emily by my side and my kids in my heart, I knew that I was truly blessed. We had created a life full of love, and for that, I was forever thankful. In the end, I learned that life is not about the setbacks we face, but about how we rise from them. It's about the strength we find within ourselves, the love we share with others, and the hope we hold on to, even in the darkest of times. And as I looked at the beautiful family I had, I knew that everything had happened for a reason. We were exactly where we were meant to be, and our future was as bright as the setting sun. Here is my friend's story too. I am Jack, a 39-year-old guy, and I just caught my wife, Emily, who's 38, cheating on me with her boss from Greenway Enterprises. They've been at it for about 2 years now. But before I get into all the details, let me give you some backstory. You all need to see the full picture to understand if she had any right to cheat, or if I'm just paying off a debt I owed from my own mistakes. Back in 2012, I took Emily to the hospital to get her tonsils removed. They handed me her belongings because she couldn't take them into the surgery room. Her phone kept buzzing, and I got curious. I decided to check who was texting her so much and found tons of inappropriate emails with another man from her work. At that time, she was reading 50 Shades of Grey and was calling this guy her Christian Grey, something she used to call me. I was furious and needed answers, but she couldn't talk after surgery. On the drive home, I gave her a piece of paper and a pen to answer my questions. She wrote that it was just flirting. I was livid. I grabbed our 2-year-old son, a briefcase of clothes, and took off to Arizona for the weekend with my best friend and his wife. When I came back, Emily told me she'd deleted her email and promised it wouldn't happen again. A few years passed, but I just couldn't shake off the betrayal. I felt the only way to move forward was to get even. I met a client who showed me some attention, and we started texting. While Emily went out with her friends, I would leave our son with my mom and go see this other woman. We had an affair, and I ended up falling in love with her. After about 9 months, she told me she was pregnant. The first thing that came to mind was Usher's Confession song, and I knew I had to come clean to Emily. Emily took it surprisingly well, saying she had a feeling and that God was preparing her for this moment. I told her I wanted a divorce and to start a new life with this other woman. Emily, however, insisted we could work things out by going to church and getting therapy from our pastor. How could I refuse? I had to break the news to the other woman, who thought we were starting a new life together, that it wasn't going to happen. Fast forward a few months, and Emily is now pregnant too, 3 months apart from the other woman. She wanted to feel more secure over the other woman, so she basically forced us to have another child together. By December 2014, I went from having 1 kid to 3 in the blink of an eye. It's been crazy, but I'm there for all my kids. Now let's jump to the present. Emily and I have had our fair share of bumps in the road, but I truly love the way we're raising our beautiful children. I've come a long way and have been faithful and committed to rebuilding our relationship. I travel for work sometimes, and so does she. Recently, I found out that for the last 2 years, she's been having an affair with her boss. Every happy hour after work, every time she claimed to be doing overtime, every trip to San Diego or Valentine's Day in Portland, he was there, keeping her warm in a hotel room. Here's how I found out. Emily went out for drinks after work, and I asked, "What time do you plan on being home?" She told me 9 p.m. 9 p.m. came around and she was nowhere in sight. I called her several times but got no answer. Eventually, I received a text with a picture of her coworker, saying she was grabbing a few more drinks before heading out. I found it odd that she could text but couldn't call. I zoomed in on the picture and saw the name of the bar. I drove 45 minutes to find her, and there she was, with her boss's arms around her. I walked up to them, and they were both shocked to see me. Emily quickly said, "Okay, bye." I replied, "Bye, but I just got here. Did I interrupt something?" She said she was closing her tab and leaving. I stayed with her boss, who was drunk and talking about his wife, telling me she doesn't pay any attention to him and how they do whatever they want. This was my first time meeting this guy, and he's spilling his guts. He asked if I've ever caught my wife cheating, and I said no, but if I did, it wouldn't be pretty. He ordered another drink, and I saw Emily calling him multiple times on his phone. I found that very odd. In the middle of his drink, he got up and left, supposedly to the bathroom, but he actually left the bar. I drove home, filled with questions for Emily. Her response was, "I'm sorry, I should have told you he was with us too." I've never been the jealous type, but a friend suggested I check my phone records. My heart dropped when I found out she'd been talking to him Monday through Friday after work for 30 minutes at a time. I confronted her with the phone bills extending back 2 years, and she claimed it was for end-of-day reporting, and he needed those numbers for his boss. It was a good lie, but since she is not salaried and clocks in and out, reporting numbers after clocking out would be illegal. I needed proof of their conversations. I won't say how, but I recorded them. What I heard broke my heart into a million pieces. I won't go into detail about how I managed to record their conversations, but what I heard shattered my heart. Emily had conversations with her cousin, talking about how much excitement her boss, Gary, brought into her life. It wasn't just about the sex. She talked about how funny and goofy he was. She even called me dumb for believing the end-of-day calls excuse. She mentioned they would have to lay low for a while and said, "Where there's a will, there's a way." Then there were the conversations between Emily and Gary themselves. They talked about how much they loved each other and how they made each other feel. I was furious, but didn't know what to do. Should I go to their HR? Emily had just gotten a promotion. Should I tell them it was because she was sleeping with her boss? I did the only thing I could think of. I contacted Gary's wife. With some help from a good buddy who loves drama, I did a ton of research and found her on LinkedIn. I sent her a message and waited for her to call. She did, and I told her everything I knew. We pieced together dates and realized they had been having a blast for years, while we were being played for fools. We set up a four-way call with Emily and Gary. Even with the recordings, they denied everything. But eventually they came clean. Now I had to ask myself, do I stay for the kids or leave her because my debts from my wrongdoings have been paid? Emily begged me to come back, but I moved out and took the kids to school every morning. She still works under Gary and swears it won't happen again, but how can I trust that after 2 years of loving another man? She let him into her heart and her bed. Is this my chance to leave her and start a fresh new life? Or do I stick around to make sure my kids grow up with both parents? Is there hope for this toxic, unhealthy marriage? Should I get Gary fired for his role in all of this? What should I do next? I know 2 wrongs don't make a right, but I'm here looking for advice from anyone who has successfully kept their family together for the sake of their children. After that call, things were tense. Emily cried a lot and kept begging for another chance. She promised she would cut all ties with Gary and even suggested we move to another state to start fresh. But I couldn't just uproot my life and the kids. Besides, I didn't trust her anymore. I took some time off work to figure things out. I spent a lot of time with my kids, trying to keep things normal for them. They didn't need to know about the mess their parents had made. I took them to the park, helped them with their homework, and made sure they felt loved and secure. Emily, on the other hand, seemed to be falling apart. She was late for work, missed deadlines, and her boss started to notice. Gary tried to cover for her, but eventually, it became clear that something was wrong. One day, Emily came to me with a plan. She suggested we go to couples therapy. She had found a therapist who specialized in infidelity and thought it might help us rebuild our trust. I was skeptical but agreed to give it a try. Our first session was awkward. The therapist, Dr. Williams, asked us to talk about what had happened and how we felt about it. Emily cried and apologized over and over. I sat there feeling numb. Dr. Williams asked us to come up with a list of things we wanted from each other. Emily wanted forgiveness and a chance to make things right. I wanted honesty and time to heal. We continued therapy for a few months. It was hard, and there were days when I wanted to quit. But slowly, I started to see a change in Emily. She was genuinely trying to make amends. She stopped going out after work, cut off all contact with Gary, and focused on our family. But the doubt was still there. Every time she got a text or a call, I wondered if it was him. Every time she was late coming home, I questioned if she was lying. It was exhausting. One evening, Emily sat me down and told me she had been offered a transfer to another office in a different city. It would mean a fresh start for both of us. She wanted to take the job and asked if we could move together as a family. I was torn. Moving meant leaving behind my job, our home, and the support system we had built. But it also meant a chance to start over. I decided to talk to my kids about it. They were surprisingly open to the idea. They saw it as an adventure and were excited about the possibility of a new school and new friends. I agreed to the move, hoping it would help us rebuild our marriage and give our kids a stable, loving home. We packed up our things, sold our house, and moved to the new city. It was challenging at first, but we slowly settled into our new life. Emily and I continued therapy, and while things weren't perfect, they were better. We were communicating more and working on rebuilding trust. I still had moments of doubt and anger, but I tried to focus on the future and what was best for our kids. Emily worked hard at her new job and made sure to prioritize our family. We spent more time together, went on family trips, and created new memories. It wasn't easy, and there were times when I wondered if I had made the right decision. But seeing the smiles on my kids' faces and the effort Emily was putting into our marriage made it worth it. I still don't know what the future holds for us, but I'm hopeful. We've come a long way, and while the scars of the past will always be there, we're doing our best to move forward and create a better future for our family. I've learned that forgiveness is a process, and healing takes time. But with love, patience, and commitment, it's possible to rebuild what was broken. For anyone going through a similar situation, my advice is to take it one day at a time. Focus on what's best for your kids and your own well-being. Seek help if you need it, and don't be afraid to lean on your support system. It's a long, hard road, but if both partners are willing to put in the effort, there's hope for a brighter future. As for Gary, I decided not to pursue any action against him. Emily had cut all ties with him, and I didn't want to drag our family through any more drama. In the end, it's not about getting even or seeking revenge. It's about finding a way to heal and move forward. Our journey isn't over, and there will undoubtedly be more challenges ahead. But for now, we're taking it one step at a time and working towards a better tomorrow. I hope our story can offer some hope and guidance to others facing similar struggles. Remember, you're not alone, and there is always a path to healing and forgiveness if you're willing to take it. Moving to the new city was both exciting and daunting. We settled into a cozy house in a quiet neighborhood. The kids loved their new school and made friends quickly, which was a huge relief. Emily and I, however, had a lot of work to do to rebuild our marriage. We continued our therapy sessions with a new therapist, Dr. Harris. He had a straightforward approach, which I appreciated. He didn't beat around the bush and got right to the core of our issues. One of the first things he asked us to do was to write letters to each other. These letters had to be brutally honest, expressing all our pain, anger, and hopes for the future. Writing that letter was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I poured out all my feelings of betrayal, my anger, and my doubts. I told Emily how her affair had shattered my trust and how I wasn't sure if I could ever fully forgive her. I also wrote about my own guilt for my past mistakes and how they had led us down this path. Emily's letter was equally raw. She expressed her deep regret and apologized for the pain she had caused. She admitted that she had been selfish and had taken me for granted. But she also wrote about her love for me and her desire to rebuild our life together. Reading each other's letters was a cathartic experience. It opened up a new level of communication between us. For the first time in years, we were talking honestly about our feelings and fears. It was a painful process, but it was also the beginning of our healing. Dr. Harris also suggested we start dating each other again. It sounded strange at first, but he explained that we needed to reconnect and rediscover why we fell in love in the first place. So we set aside one night a week for just the two of us. We went out for dinner, watched movies, or simply took long walks and talked. Those date nights were awkward initially, but slowly we started to enjoy each other's company again. We laughed, shared stories, and even reminisced about the early days of our relationship. It reminded us that despite everything, there was still a strong bond between us. I also started working on myself. I realized that for our marriage to work, I needed to deal with my own issues. I joined a support group for men who had been cheated on, and it was a huge help. Sharing my story and hearing others' experiences made me feel less alone. It also gave me valuable insights into how to cope with my emotions and move forward. One of the most significant breakthroughs came during a therapy session where Dr. Harris asked us to list the qualities we admired in each other. It was easy to focus on the negative, but this exercise forced us to see the good in each other. I listed Emily's kindness, her dedication to our family, and her ability to make me laugh. She listed my loyalty, my hard work, and my love for our children. That session was a turning point. It reminded us why we had chosen each other and why we were fighting so hard to save our marriage. But even with all this effort, things were still fragile. I had moments of doubt and anger that would bubble up. Emily and I had our good days, but the shadows of the past loomed large. Despite the therapy and all our attempts to mend things, something was missing. A few months after our move, I noticed Emily becoming distant again. She started coming home late, claiming work was overwhelming with the new position. I wanted to believe her, but my gut told me otherwise. One evening, I found her phone on the kitchen counter. It was buzzing with a message from an unfamiliar name. Curiosity got the best of me, and I checked the message. It was from a coworker named Mike, and the texts were way too friendly for my comfort. My heart sank as I scrolled through the messages, realizing that history was repeating itself. I confronted Emily that night. She tried to deny it at first, saying Mike was just a friend, but the evidence was clear. Eventually, she broke down and admitted to having another affair. This time, it wasn't just a fling. She had feelings for him. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. All the progress we made, all the efforts to rebuild our trust, were shattered in an instant. I couldn't believe she had betrayed me again. I packed a bag and left the house that night. I stayed with a friend while I tried to figure out what to do next. Emily called and texted, begging for another chance, but I was done. The pain was too much to bear. The next few weeks were a blur. I filed for divorce and made arrangements for joint custody of the kids. I didn't want them to suffer because of our mistakes. I focused on being there for them, trying to maintain some sense of normalcy in their lives. Emily moved out and found a place of her own. We agreed to keep things civil for the sake of the kids, but it was hard. Every time I saw her, I was reminded of the betrayal. The trust was gone, and I couldn't see a way to rebuild it. I continued with my support group, which became my lifeline during this difficult time. Sharing my story and hearing others' experiences gave me strength. I realized that I wasn't alone and that I could get through this. As time passed, I started to heal. I focused on my kids, my job, and my own well-being. I made new friends and even started dating again. It wasn't easy, and I had my guard up, but I was determined to move forward. Looking back, I realized that sometimes, despite our best efforts, things don't work out, and that's okay. What's important is to learn from our experiences and grow stronger. I learned to value myself and to never settle for less than I deserve. For anyone going through a similar situation, my advice is to take it one day at a time. Focus on your own healing and the well-being of your kids. Seek support and don't be afraid to ask for help. It's a long road, but you can get through it. In the end, I found peace in knowing that I did everything I could to save my marriage. It didn't work out, but I came out stronger and more resilient. And now, I'm ready to start a new chapter in my life, with hope for a brighter future.